My mom wanted my dramatic stepsister to be my maid of honor instead of my lifelong best friend. When I said no, all hell broke loose and my wedding turned into a family nightmare. I'm Jenny, 27F, and I've been engaged to Thomas, 29M, for about a year now. We met in college when we were paired up for a group project in our economics class. At first, I thought Thomas was just another frat boy who wouldn't pull his weight, but he surprised me with his dedication and intelligence. We started as study partners, then friends, and eventually realized there was something more between us. Our relationship grew stronger through some tough times, especially when my parents divorced 5 years ago. I remember the day my mom, Sarah, 52F, called me in tears. She had just found out that my dad, Marshall, 55M, had been having an affair with his secretary for over a year. I was shocked and heartbroken. My dad had always been my hero, the one who taught me to ride a bike, who cheered the loudest at my soccer games, and who helped me move into my first apartment. Finding out he had betrayed our family like this shattered the image I had of him. The divorce was messy and drawn out. My dad tried to explain himself, saying he had felt neglected and unappreciated in the marriage, but I couldn't bring myself to sympathize with him. I sided with my mom during the proceedings, which caused a rift between my dad and me that took years to heal. During this time, Thomas was my rock. He listened to me vent for hours, brought me comfort food when I was too upset to cook, and even helped my mom move out of our family home. His unwavering support made me realize that he was the one I wanted to spend my life with. 2 years after the divorce was finalized, my mom told me she had met someone. His name was Greg, 54M, and they had connected at a yoga retreat in Bali. My mom had never been the type to do something like that, but after the divorce, she said she needed to find herself again. I was happy that she was moving on, but I'll admit I was a bit skeptical when she announced they were getting married after only 6 months of dating. The wedding was a small affair, held in Greg's backyard. That's where I met my new stepsister, Lydia, 25F. From the moment she arrived, fashionably late and complaining about the heat, I knew we were going to have issues. While I was trying to help set up and make sure my mom was relaxed, Lydia seemed more concerned with taking selfies and criticizing the decorations. During the reception, Lydia dominated every conversation, talking about her job as a social media influencer and how she was building her brand. She made several backhanded compliments about my mom's dress and even flirted with one of Greg's nephews, who was clearly uncomfortable with her attention. I tried to give Lydia the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she was just nervous about the new family situation. But as time went on, her behavior didn't improve. At family gatherings, she would often make snide remarks about my career as a high school teacher, implying that I wasn't ambitious enough. She would constantly compare herself to me, bragging about her follower count or the free products she received, as if these were measures of success. Despite my reservations about Lydia, I made an effort to be civil for my mom's sake. When Thomas proposed to me last year during a surprise weekend getaway to the beach where we had our first vacation together, I was over the moon. We decided to have an engagement party to celebrate with our families and close friends. The party was held at our favorite local restaurant, a cozy Italian place where Thomas and I had our first official date. I spent weeks planning it, making sure everything was perfect. I even invited Lydia, hoping that including her in this special moment might help us bond. But true to form, Lydia managed to make the night about her. She showed up an hour late, wearing a white dress that looked more appropriate for a wedding than an engagement party. She spent most of the night taking selfies and live streaming, barely acknowledging Thomas or me. When it came time for toasts, she grabbed the microphone uninvited and proceeded to give a rambling speech about how she was still single and how lucky I was to have found someone willing to marry me. She then joked about how she hoped Thomas had a cute single brother or friend for her. Thomas's brother, who was sitting right there with his wife, looked mortified. After that disaster, I decided to keep Lydia at arm's length. I limited our interactions to necessary family functions and politely declined her offers to help with wedding planning. I thought everything was fine until last week when my mom dropped the bombshell. She called me up and said, "Jenny, I have a wonderful idea. Why don't you ask Lydia to be your maid of honor? It would mean so much to her, and it would really bring you two closer as sisters." I was stunned. My best friend, Emma, 27F, has been my designated maid of honor since we were kids. Emma and I met on the first day of kindergarten when we both showed up wearing the same unicorn backpack. We've been inseparable ever since. She was there for my first heartbreak in high school, helped me move into my dorm in college, and was the first person I called, after Thomas, of course, when we got engaged. The thought of anyone else being my maid of honor, let alone Lydia, was unthinkable. I tried to explain this to my mom, reminding her of how long Emma and I have been friends and how much she means to me. But my mom wouldn't listen. She kept going on about how Lydia feels left out and how this would be a perfect opportunity for us to bond. When I stood my ground, She accused me of being selfish and not giving Lydia a chance. Jenny, you're not a little girl anymore, my mom said, her voice tinged with disappointment. You're going to be a married woman soon. Part of being an adult is making compromises for the sake of family harmony. Her words stung. I've always been close to my mom, and her disapproval hit me hard. But at the same time, I couldn't help feeling frustrated. Why was it always on me to make compromises? Why couldn't Lydia be the one to step back and respect my wishes for once? Now, my mom is giving me the cold shoulder. She's not returning my calls and has been posting vague, passive-aggressive statuses on Facebook about the importance of family. Greg, caught in the middle, has been trying to keep the peace. He called me yesterday, sounding tired and stressed. Jenny, I know this is a difficult situation, he said. But your mom really wants this to work out. Is there any way you could reconsider? Maybe Lydia and Emma could both be maids of honor? The suggestion made me cringe. The thought of Lydia and Emma having to work together, planning my bachelorette party and coordinating bridesmaids' dresses, seemed like a recipe for disaster. Lydia, who apparently heard about this from my mom, has been on a social media rampage. She's been posting passive-aggressive comments about how blood isn't always thicker than water and how some people can't handle strong, independent women. She even went as far as to post a TikTok video dramatically reenacting how she imagines I rejected her as maid of honor, complete with fake tears and exaggerated facial expressions. The video has gone viral in her circle of followers, with comments sympathizing with her and calling me all sorts of names. Thomas thinks I should stand my ground. Babe, this is our wedding, he said last night as we lay in bed, both unable to sleep due to the stress of the situation. It's supposed to be about us, not about making everyone else happy. If having Lydia as your maid of honor is going to make you miserable, then it's not worth it. I know he's right, but I can't help worrying about the long-term consequences. What if this creates a permanent rift between me and my mom? What if Greg starts to resent me for upsetting his daughter? Is this going to cast a shadow over every future family gathering? My dad, when I called him for advice, told me to do whatever makes me happy. Sweetie, I learned the hard way that you can't live your life trying to please everyone else, he said, a hint of regret in his voice. You've got to do what feels right for you. I could tell he was worried about the family drama, though. After everything we've been through, I know he hates to see us at odds again. I'm torn. On one hand, I want to stand firm in my decision. Emma has been by my side through everything, and she deserves to be my maid of honor. Plus, I'm worried that giving in to Lydia now will only encourage her dramatic behavior in the future. On the other hand, I don't want to hurt my mom or cause a rift in the family. I've always dreamed of having a big, happy family wedding, with everyone smiling in the photos and dancing together at the reception. Now I'm starting to wonder if that's even possible. The wedding is still months away, but this drama is already casting a shadow over what should be a joyful time of planning and celebration. I find myself getting stressed every time my phone pings, worried it's another guilt-tripping message from my mom or a notification about one of Lydia's posts. Am I being unreasonable? Should I give Lydia a chance, or stick with my original plan? How do I navigate these complex family dynamics without losing sight of what's important? Ida? Update 1, it's been a week since my last post, and things have only gotten more complicated. After reading all of your comments and giving it a lot of thought, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with my mom to explain my feelings and hopefully reach a compromise. I invited her over for coffee, just the two of us, at my apartment. When my mom arrived, I could tell she was tense. She barely met my eyes as she sat down at the kitchen table, clutching her purse like a shield. I took a deep breath and started the conversation, determined to stay calm and rational. At first, it was like talking to a brick wall. My mom kept insisting that I was being unfair to Lydia and that I needed to make more of an effort to include her in my life. She's your sister now, Jenny, my mom said, her voice tinged with frustration. Family is supposed to come first. I took another deep breath and decided to open up about how Lydia's behavior had affected me. I told her about the embarrassment I felt at the engagement party when Lydia made that inappropriate speech. I explained how Lydia's constant competitiveness and put-downs made me feel inadequate and uncomfortable at family gatherings. I even showed her some of the social media posts Lydia had made about the situation, which my mom hadn't seen because she's not very active online. To my surprise, my mom's demeanor changed as I spoke. Her defensive posture softened, and I saw tears forming in her eyes. "Oh, Jenny," she said, her voice breaking. "I had no idea things were this bad between you two." And then, my mom did something she hasn't done in years. She opened up to me about her own struggles. She confessed that she had been feeling guilty about the divorce and how it had affected me. She saw my wedding as an opportunity to bring our blended family closer together and make up for the pain of the past. "I just want you to have the family I couldn't give you when you were growing up," she said, wiping away tears. I thought if I could get you and Lydia to bond, it would somehow make up for everything that went wrong with your father and me. I hadn't realized how much she was still carrying that burden. We talked for hours, sharing our feelings and fears. My mom told me about how difficult it had been to blend families with Greg, especially given Lydia's strong personality. She admitted that she often gave in to Lydia's demands to keep the peace, and she realized that wasn't fair to me. By the end of our conversation, we came to an understanding. My mom agreed that it wasn't fair to ask me to make Lydia my maid of honor, but she still wanted her to have a role in the wedding. We brainstormed and came up with a solution. We would ask Lydia to do a reading during the ceremony. This way, she would have a special part in the wedding without taking on the responsibilities of a maid of honor. My mom thought this was a good compromise, and I felt relieved that we had found a middle ground. We hugged, both of us feeling lighter than we had in weeks. For the first time since this whole drama started, I felt hopeful that we could move forward positively. However, when my mom shared this idea with Greg and Lydia, things took an unexpected turn. Lydia threw a fit, claiming that a reading wasn't good enough and that she deserved a more prominent role. According to Greg, who called me to explain the situation, Lydia accused me of deliberately excluding her and trying to make her look bad in front of the family. She feels like you're treating her as an afterthought, Greg said, sounding exhausted. She says if she can't be a bridesmaid, she at least wants to give a speech at the reception. The thought of Lydia giving a speech made my stomach churn, given her performance at the engagement party. But before I could respond, Greg continued, I know it's a lot to ask, but is there any way she could be a bridesmaid instead? I think it would mean a lot to her. I was taken aback. I had already chosen my bridesmaids, my cousins Kate and Lisa, and my college roommates Megan and Rachel. These were women who had been there for me through thick and thin. Adding Lydia to the mix would not only disrupt the dynamic but also potentially cause drama on my wedding day. The situation has created a rift between Greg and my mom. Greg feels torn between supporting his daughter and respecting my wishes, while my mom is frustrated that her attempts at family harmony keep backfiring. I overheard them arguing about it when I stopped by their house to drop off some wedding invitation samples. We can't force Jenny to include Lydia if she doesn't want to, my mom said, her voice raised. This is her wedding, Greg. And Lydia is her sister, Greg shot back. How do you think this makes her feel? Like she's not really part of the family. To make matters worse, Lydia has started reaching out to other family members, spinning her own version of events. She's painting herself as the victim, claiming that I'm cruel and exclusionary. Some relatives have been calling me, questioning my decisions and urging me to reconsider. My Aunt Susan, my mom's sister, called me yesterday. Jenny, honey, she said, her voice dripping with faux concern, don't you think you're being a bit harsh? Lydia is your sister now. Maybe you could find a way to include her in the wedding party? I tried to explain the situation, but I could tell Aunt Susan had already made up her mind. It's frustrating to feel like I'm being painted as the villain in my own wedding story. Thomas has been incredibly supportive through all of this. He's offered to talk to Lydia himself, but I'm worried that might make things even more complicated. I could try to explain our perspective, he suggested. Maybe if she hears it from me, she'll understand it's not personal. But I'm concerned that Lydia might twist Thomas's words or use them to create more drama. The last thing I want is for her to accuse Thomas of being rude or aggressive towards her. My dad has also stepped in, telling me that I shouldn't let anyone pressure me into decisions about my own wedding. Pumpkin, this is your day, he said when I called him, overwhelmed and seeking advice. You and Thomas should be the ones calling the shots, not anyone else. I'm feeling overwhelmed and conflicted. On one hand, I want to maintain peace in the family and make my mom happy. I know how much it means to her to see our blended family come together. On the other hand, I don't want to compromise on my vision for my wedding day or reward Lydia's manipulative behavior. The wedding is still months away, but this drama is already casting a shadow over what should be a joyful time. I find myself stressing about seating arrangements and photo combinations, trying to figure out how to keep everyone happy without sacrificing my own happiness. I'm starting to wonder if there's any way to resolve this situation without someone getting hurt. Should I stand my ground or give in to keep the peace? How do I navigate these complex family dynamics without losing sight of what's important, celebrating my love for Thomas and starting our life together? Update 2. Things have taken a dramatic turn since my last update. I thought I had found a solution, but it turns out I was just at the beginning of a much bigger problem. After much consideration and long talks with Thomas, I decided to stick to my original plan. Emma would be my maid of honor, and Lydia would do a reading at the ceremony. I felt this was a fair compromise that gave Lydia a special role without disrupting the wedding party dynamics I had already established. I called a family meeting to communicate this decision clearly to everyone involved. My mom, Greg, Lydia, and my dad all gathered in my parents' living room. I explained my reasons calmly and expressed hope that we could all move forward positively. At first, it seemed like things were calming down. Lydia, while clearly not thrilled, nodded along as I spoke. My mom squeezed my hand, a gesture of support that made me feel like we were finally on the same page. Even Greg seemed relieved that a decision had been made. We ended the meeting with awkward hugs and promises to focus on making the wedding a joyous occasion for everyone. For a few weeks, things seemed to be looking up. Lydia stopped her social media campaign, and my mom, while not thrilled, said she understood my decision. We even had a family dinner where everyone was civil, if not warm. I started to feel hopeful that we could move past this drama and focus on the wedding. However, last weekend, everything exploded. Thomas and I were at a cake tasting, trying to decide between a classic vanilla buttercream and a more adventurous lavender honey flavor, when I received a flurry of texts from Emma. She sent me screenshots of messages she had received from an anonymous number, threatening to expose her secrets if she didn't step down as maid of honor. The messages hinted at some embarrassing incidents from our college days and claimed to have compromising photos. I was shocked and immediately suspected Lydia. The timing was too convenient, and who else would have such a vested interest in removing Emma from her role? When I confronted Lydia over the phone, she denied everything, but her reaction seemed off. She was too calm, almost smug, saying things like, "Wow, that's terrible. I wonder who could have done such a thing?" I told my mom and Greg about the situation, expecting them to be as appalled as I was. To my surprise, Greg defended Lydia, saying there was no proof it was her. "You can't just accuse her without evidence," he argued. "Maybe it's someone else who's jealous of Emma's role." My mom seemed conflicted but ultimately sided with Greg, suggesting that maybe it was just a prank by someone else. "I know Lydia can be difficult," she said, "but I don't think she'd go this far. Let's not jump to conclusions." I was furious. Even if there was no concrete proof, the timing and nature of the threats pointed clearly to Lydia. The fact that my mom and Greg weren't taking it seriously made me feel betrayed and alone. Thomas was livid when I told him what had happened. He wanted to confront Lydia directly and even suggested we involve the police. "This is harassment, Jenny," he said, pacing our living room. "We can't let her get away with this." I was tempted but worried it would only escalate the situation and create an irreparable rift in the family. Plus, without solid proof, I wasn't sure what the police could do. In the midst of all this, Emma, bless her heart, remained steadfast. She told me not to worry about the threats and that she wasn't going to let anyone intimidate her out of being my maid of honor. "We've been through too much together to let some coward with an anonymous number come between us," she said. Her loyalty and strength made me even more certain that I had made the right choice. The situation has created a clear divide in the family. My dad and Thomas's parents are firmly on our side, disgusted by the threats and Lydia's behavior. My dad even offered to hire a private investigator to track down the source of the messages, though I declined, fearing it would only add fuel to the fire. My mom, Greg, and some other relatives are either defending Lydia or trying to stay neutral, which feels almost worse. Aunt Susan called again, this time suggesting that maybe I should consider postponing the wedding until things calm down. "You don't want all this drama to ruin your special day," she said, as if the drama wasn't entirely caused by Lydia's actions. I'm at a loss. I feel like I'm being forced to choose between my wedding vision and family harmony. The thought of having Lydia at my wedding now makes me uncomfortable, but uninviting her would likely mean my mom and Greg wouldn't attend either. Thomas has suggested we elope, but that feels like letting Lydia win. Plus, I've always dreamed of having a big wedding surrounded by loved ones. I don't want to give that up because of one person's selfish behavior. I'm torn between standing my ground and trying to keep the peace. Part of me wants to confront Lydia one last time and give her a chance to come clean and apologize. Another part wants to cut her out completely and deal with the fallout. As the wedding date approaches, I find myself more stressed than excited. What should have been a happy time of planning and celebration has turned into a nightmare of family drama and difficult decisions. Update 3. It's been a whirlwind few weeks since my last update, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. But I wanted to share the resolution to this saga, which turned out quite differently than I expected. After much deliberation, I decided to have one final conversation with Lydia. I asked her to meet me at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in town where Thomas and I often go for Sunday brunch. To my surprise, she agreed without argument. When we met, I laid everything out on the table. I told her about the threatening messages to Emma, my suspicions, and how her behavior had affected me and the family. I was prepared for denial or another outburst, but what happened next caught me completely off guard. Lydia broke down in tears. Between sobs, she confessed to sending the messages to Emma. But then she revealed something I hadn't expected. She had been struggling with severe anxiety and depression for years, exacerbated by her parents' divorce and her mom's quick remarriage to my dad. She explained that her loud and aggressive behavior was a defense mechanism, a way to mask her insecurities and fear of abandonment. The wedding had triggered a lot of these issues, making her feel like she was being replaced or left behind in the new family dynamic. "I know it doesn't excuse what I did," she said, wiping her eyes. "I just felt so alone and scared. I thought if I could be part of your wedding, it would prove that I belonged somewhere." I was stunned. While this didn't excuse her actions, it helped me understand where she was coming from. We talked for hours, really listening to each other for the first time. Lydia apologized sincerely for her behavior and the pain she had caused. She also agreed to seek professional help to work through her issues. After our talk, we decided to come clean to the family together. We gathered everyone, my mom, Greg, my dad, and Thomas, and explained everything. There were tears, anger, and confusion, but ultimately, a sense of relief that the truth was finally out. In light of everything, we made some changes to the wedding plans. Lydia won't be doing a reading, as we both agreed it would be too stressful for her. Instead, she's going to help with some behind-the-scenes aspects of the wedding, like assembling favors and helping with decorations. This gives her a way to be involved without the pressure of a public role. Emma, true to her amazing self, was incredibly understanding when I explained the situation. She's still my maid of honor, and she's even offered to reach out to Lydia and try to build a friendship. The past few months have been a roller coaster, but I feel like we've all come out stronger on the other side. My relationship with my mom has improved as we've worked through this together. Thomas has been my rock throughout everything, reaffirming that I'm marrying the right person. The wedding is now just a few weeks away, and for the first time in a long time, I'm excited rather than anxious. It may not be the perfect, drama-free event I initially envisioned, but it feels more real and meaningful now. We're not just celebrating Thomas and me, but also the growth and healing of our whole family. I've learned a lot through this experience, about communication, empathy, and the complexities of family dynamics. While I don't condone Lydia's actions, I'm glad we were able to find a path to understanding and reconciliation. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support throughout this journey. Your insights helped me navigate this difficult situation and come to a resolution that feels right for everyone involved.